Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody joining today. I'll give everybody a global good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I want to thank you all for taking the time out today for this expert talk on the cloud-based security information and event management system within Azure, known as Azure Sentinel. My name is Dwayne Natwick, and I'm the instructor for this expert talk, as well as I've done some authoring for Opsagility and Skill Me Up recently. I author, train, and am a product manager that has been in the IT industry for over 30 years. I hold multiple role-based certifications, and I'm also a ISC2 CISSP and a PMI PMP. I provide Microsoft certified training as a Microsoft certified trainer, as well as I'm a regional lead for the MCT program. And as you see on the slide, I am active on social media, on Twitter, LinkedIn, as well as have my own blog site where I put articles around Azure technologies, cloud technologies, and cloud certifications on a regular basis. So what are we going to talk about today? What we're going to go through is what is a SIEM system? What do those services provide? We'll talk about Azure Sentinel. We'll go through and provide some demos around enabling Azure Sentinel, connecting data sources within Azure Sentinel, and then last, but definitely not least, how to utilize Azure Sentinel to evaluate information, analyze information, and continually improve what's coming into the Azure Sentinel environment. So to start things off, let's talk about what is security information and event management. So for those of you who are not familiar, security information and event management systems, usually shortened as SIEM as the acronym. And big question there is what is the pronunciation of that acronym? I've seen different people say SIEM, say SIM. Generally, the pronunciation is SIM. We drop the long E pronunciation and refer to it as a SIEM system. And it's utilized as a central location for gathering logs and security events. A SIEM can gather information from multiple data sources and feed that information into a consolidated list of events. The logs and events can then be reviewed generally by a network operations center, customarily by a security operations center or a SOC for any vulnerabilities, threats, or attacks that may be taking place and be viewed within those logs. So the benefits of a SIEM is that it is a key part of a defense in-depth security posture. As we discussed in the previous slide, it acts as a central point of information that can identify vulnerabilities and threats within the organization. And proper utilization and investment in an intelligent SIEM system can help to decrease vulnerabilities, identify potential threats, and remediate and decrease attack surfaces within your environment. So how does, now that we know what a SIEM is, let's talk about what Azure Sentinel is. So Azure Sentinel is a cloud-native SIEM solution, and it utilizes the power of the Azure cloud as well as the artificial intelligence and cognitive services that are built in Azure to collect data across users, devices, applications, and infrastructure within multiple clouds or even on-premise. Detect new threats and minimize false positives utilizing Azure's analytics and threat intelligence services. It can investigate threats utilizing AI and search suspicious activity through Microsoft's extensive cybersecurity information database. And it can respond to incidents with built-in automation of common tasks. And we'll talk about more of those, that automation, as we get into the demo of the system. So how is Azure Sentinel priced? Azure Sentinel is priced as a pay-as-you-go subscription, and it works very similarly to the way that a storage account is priced, where it's priced per gigabit, but it's per gigabit of data ingested. And then there are additional tier discounts if you're ingesting more than 100 gigabits per day. Something to take into account is that in addition to the pricing of the gigabits ingested, understand that there is also data that is coming in and being stored into a storage account that will also carry a cost. So having a good data lifecycle established within your storage account will help to control any escalated costs, making sure that that any old log data that isn't being accessed is moving to a cold or archive storage if you need to maintain it for an extended period of time, but make sure that it's not in a hot storage account and creating those extra costs. And we'll take a look. We'll take a look here. I'll show you a little bit on the Azure Sentinel website. You can see here, and this slide. The slides have the links to the Azure Sentinel Microsoft page, and you can view all of the information around Azure Sentinel within this page, as well as some documents around SIEM analysis, as well as a quick start guide here. There's a good video here on how SIEM service uses the AI analytics. And then here is the pricing page. As I was saying, there is a price per gig of around $2.50 per gigabit ingested. And then you have the ability, if you are ingesting a large amount of data, to create a tiered approach, which decreases and provides a substantial discount once you hit 100 gigabits per day. So a large enterprise could very easily get to that with feeding multiple data sources from multiple places. So it's important to understand how this tiered approach works. And if your enterprise is gathering a lot of data and bringing in a lot of data, make sure that you're utilizing one of these capacity tiers to decrease your cost. And when we go into the Sentinel dashboard, we'll go through and show where you would be able to tier up or tier down your subscription based on your needs. Let's talk about how you can enable Azure Sentinel within Microsoft Azure. So getting started with Azure Sentinel is very easy. The first thing you need to do is create a Sentinel workspace. And it's a two-step process of just going into the Azure Sentinel service, searching on Azure Sentinel in the portal, and clicking Add to add the workspace. And then this will take you to a Choose a Workspace page. And in the Choose a Workspace page, you're actually choosing a log analytics workspace within this area, or creating one if you want to have one dedicated to Azure Sentinel. And these log analytics workspaces are utilized as that central source where all the data is being fed, all the analysis is taking place, and then presenting it to the Sentinel dashboard and services within within Azure Sentinel services. Within this step, like I said, you can create or use a existing workspace, and then after stepping through creating the workspace, this will then connect that log analytics workspace to Sentinel, and you'll have a workspace created. After you create that workspace, that you then can go into the Azure Sentinel dashboard, look at the overview dashboard and menu. We're not going to go through the menu items right now. We'll hit into that in a few minutes. But Azure Sentinel definitely has a similar look and feel to all other services, where you have your menu dashboard on the left. You have your overview dashboard and graphics within the screen, within the tile when you first arrive, and then you can step through and work on configuring the services and configuring the data sources of the service from there. Next thing I want to do is just step through, first and foremost, the steps that I just covered in creating a workspace. So as you can see, I am in Azure Sentinel, but if I say was in the home screen, you can simply type in Sentinel and find Azure Sentinel right there in the list. I already have a workspace created with some data sources connected that's gathered a little bit of information in here. So we'll create a new one specifically for this demo here. And let's create a new workspace. So we're creating a log analytics workspace. We need to select a resource group and just give it a name. Assign it to a location. And then review and create. And after that is created, it then deploys. And it's still deploying. So what we'll do here is, since that's already deploying and I have a log analytics workspace already created, we're just going to select one. But when you want to create a new one, that's what you would do. Oh, actually, there it is. It doesn't take that long, but there we go. And you can see here, it does give you a warning here that Azure Sentinel is a paid Azure service, as we stated. So keep that in the back of your mind. You can learn more. It'll take you to Microsoft Docs, give you that pricing information that we just reviewed. And then we add our Sentinel workspace to that log analytics workspace. And it immediately then takes you to actually the Get Started guide. We'll talk about this in a few minutes. And then your overview page, where you can see the different information here. I'll go back to another workspace, to my other workspaces, and the one that's connected that's got a little bit more information here. And you can see there's actually some data that's being fed into this workspace. The next, we will talk about connecting data sources and how that then feeds into the Sentinel service. So Azure Sentinel gathers information from numerous Azure native data sources, and these can be very easily connected through the data sources menu, and we'll go through, as I said, we'll go through that shortly. We've got a partial list here on the slide where you can see you have availability to feed not just Azure services, but other Microsoft services such as 365 into the Sentinel workspace. and take advantage of the depth of security services within the Microsoft ecosystem and bring that data into that single location to be able to view vulnerabilities and threats across Microsoft. You can see here Cloud App Security, information protection, the Azure Threat Protection Services, Security Center. You can feed Security Center services right into Azure Sentinel and have some of those run books and everything running and viewing those within Azure Sentinel. Like I said, Office 365, Web Application Firewall, all of those services are built to be fed into Azure Sentinel. And then, as well as internal data sources, Microsoft and Azure Sentinel have the ability to gather information from external data sources. One of the big ones that pops right out at you when you go into connecting data sources is you see right away Amazon Web Services. You can connect AWS's logging service CloudTrail right into Azure Sentinel and view those services right in the Sentinel dashboard. It allows you to tie together that hybrid and multi-cloud SIEM solution within one SIEM service in Sentinel. Other firewall and endpoint protecting services can also be connected. You can see some very industry recognized vendors here with Barracuda, Checkpoint, Cisco, Symantec, Trend, and that provides, again, that full visibility of your security infrastructure within one place. Once you've selected what data sources you want to connect and identified what they are, then the next step is going to the connector page and connecting those. This page provides the directions on how to connect these data sources. Azure native data sources are very simple. It may just be selecting and enabling to connect those data sources. And you can add multiple data sources from these industry-leading providers, and more. As Sentinel becomes more mature, more and more of these vendors will be added into Sentinel to maintain that centralized point for your SIEM solution. And let's step through a couple of data sources and connecting those data sources. We're going to look at connecting Azure Security Center, and we'll also go out and connect CloudTrail and go through those directions. So let's go to the Sentinel service that I just created. And as you can see, we don't have, this is a blank slate right now. We don't have anything connected within this dashboard. So we're going to go down here into configuration to data connectors. And like I said, we're going to connect Azure Security Center as our first one here. And if you're just looking for a specific provider here, let's say Cisco, you can type that right there, search on those. We're just going to leave the filter because Security Center is right here. And select it, open the connector page, and that's going to take you right in here. And you can see here, very simple, most of the Azure native services are simply as easy as changing this toggle from disconnected to connect. And you can see connection status connected, and we have now connected our first data source within Azure Sentinel. And you can see right away we've got 39 connectors now from Azure Security Center that are now feeding into the environment. Actually, no, these are the list of connectors. Sorry, but we'll see when we go back to the Overview tab. Now that we're connected, we'll start seeing information being fed into here. So let's now look at Amazon Web Services as our second. Oh yeah, quick question here from the chat. Can you connect to other Azure Security Centers which are not in your account? That's a good question. These would actually be, you would have to probably, so you're talking about from other subscriptions. I think right now it would really be from this particular subscription that you would have to feed this into. So it would be a tenant specific connection for your Azure services. It doesn't have external connectors right now for external Azure services at this time. It's a really good question. Got me stumped already. All right, let's go back to the data connectors, and let's do AWS, which interesting point. You can, like I said, like that question requested, can we do external Azure tenants? You cannot, but you could do the AWS tenants utilizing their CloudTrail. And you can see you're given some specific information here and directions. There is a step-by-step direction in Microsoft Docs for what you need to do here in your AWS console to connect these accounts. I've gone through most of these steps, so this should be pretty quick when I go into my management console. So I can go right into I've already done the CloudTrail, enabled the CloudTrail service. Obviously, you have to have CloudTrail working, and then you can go into here, and within, I need to go into my roles, and you can see here I've already got a role created for this Sentinel service. So we're just going to use this role, but you would actually go through and create a specific role in here for another AWS account. We'll create, so here in the account ID, we have in our Microsoft the account ID here. So we're going to copy that. And it says require the external ID. We're going to take the Workspace ID here and copy that right in. And select your permissions. Permission it wants you to select is CloudTrail. So shortcut and set it to read access. If we want any tags, we can do tags and give it a role name. And create your role. Then we go into that role and take the role ARN and copy that. And then that gets pasted back into Azure Sentinel. And it'll validate. You can see the role is then being added, and the role is added into Azure Sentinel. And that is how we add an external. If we're doing any other external services, we can see, we can go and view the data connections for those as well. Some of them are scripts in Linux. I think for, which one was I looking at yesterday? Might have been looking at Semantic. You can see semantics similarly to the AWS, where there's a workspace ID and a primary key. There was another one. It might have been might have been for, maybe it was trend. Yeah, it was trend. Utilizing trend, you have some Linux commands that you would run in your Linux machine that's hosting your trend services to connect those services as well. So now we've got the Azure Sentinel service up and running. So we're now gathering data from two data sources, from Security Center as well as AWS CloudTrail. So how can we use that then to maximize our security incident response within our organization? So from here, the Sentinel Workspace dashboard has the three sections that we showed on previous slide. But let's just review them here again. There's the general section, the threat management section, and the configuration section. And the following slides will talk about each of these in detail. And when you first enter the Sentinel Workspace, you get taken to that overview page that provides a number of visualizations that can provide you with some immediate feedback into what's going on in your environment. And these include a quick count of events and alerts, as you can see up at the top of the screen, as well as some helpful graphics around alerts over time, data source anomalies, which are over on the right side, and can show you, and then the potential malicious events map, which, if you're familiar with the security alerts map in Azure Security Center, it's very similar to that. It can show graphically on the map where potential threats may lie. And then, when selecting one of these bars, in terms of the events over time, you can be taken to those logs and then run queries to take a deeper dive into activity. So this is an interactive map. Same thing with the data source anomalies. You can click right on that map, and then it'll take you to those log files, and you can do some more in-depth review of that information. Let's take a deeper dive into what makes up the general section within the overview dashboard. It provides that default view of the Sentinel Workspace, as I stated. Then there's the logs, which take you directly to the Log Analytics workspace, and you can view and then run queries on those logs, just like you can in a typical analytics workspace service. And then the news and guides provide very helpful information and links to documentation. There's a What's New tab, and then there's also the Get Started tab, which was what popped up when we first created our workspace. That's where you could go back and continue to handle the three-step recommendations in setting up the Azure Sentinel data connectors, setting up security alerts, as well as setting up automation within that Get Started section. The threat management section is where all the services within Sentinel are really brought together for your daily management needs for incidents, for the view of incidents, vulnerabilities, and threats. You have the incidents page, which provides that full dashboard of incidents and ability to filter them by severity and give you a quick look into the number of open incidents and new incidents. The workbooks allow you to view and to customize a dashboard for specific data sources based on some templates within Sentinel that you can save to your own set of workbooks. And then the hunting section is where the AI and cognitive services power of Sentinel is really represented and harnessed. In the background in Sentinel, Azure is running queries on all the data sources and logs and comparing this to their cybersecurity database on a constant basis to find potential vulnerabilities before they become attacks. And we'll take a deeper look at this in a few minutes and how to customize and what you can do within this hunting section to gather information. And then the last section is the notebooks. This section allows you to enable various hunting and investigation notebook templates utilizing a Jupyter account with Python code. So we'll look at that a little bit. There's also some run books and things that we'll look at that also can pull templates and repositories from GitHub. So there are some third-party and open source assistance that you can get within the community to sign up and run notebooks and gather information into dashboards, set up projects in Jupyter from within this section. And the final part of the menu is the configuration section, and this is the place where you would make additions and adjustments to the setup of Azure Sentinel. We talked about the data connector section. This is the section where you would add data sources to Sentinel. Analytics is where you would create a new rule-based schedule, Analytics is where you would create rule-based queries. For a query or a Microsoft incident, you can create different rules around that. Playbook section allows you to bring in logic app workflows or create new ones, very similar to the workflow automation within Azure Security Center. A community link that takes you right to the Azure Sentinel GitHub community for more templates and resources within that. And then finally, the settings allow you to view your data ingestion for the past month. You can scale up and scale down your Sentinel subscription based on usage. And this is where, if you're no longer going to use the Azure Sentinel service, you can remove that service from your log analytics workspace within this section, rather than typically where you go in and you click delete of a service, like a resource group or something right from that workspace panel. With Azure Sentinel, you actually have to go into this specific section and remove that service. So it's a little bit different than a lot of other Azure services. Let's walk through now creating a workspace and adding a data source. A couple things that we're going to do here. We're going to spend a little bit more time within the Azure Sentinel workspace and look at the Get Started tab. We'll create an alert and an automation playbook from the Getting Started tab, and we'll spend some time looking at the hunting section and how it works and how to sign up and run a notebook within the Jupyter services. So we're back in our Azure Sentinel workspace. Let's go, I'm going to move into the one that I've got information running in. And you can see here in the overview, as I was saying before, you have an active bar graph here. And again, you can click on that specific date and it will take me right to the log analytics workspace. You can see right here logs, and you can run various queries in here. But you can see this is all for this specific date and time within the graph. Here again, another means to go into the analytics workspace. This takes you directly in here. You can run various queries. You have different query templates here that you can run. You have your history here. So here you can run, AWS Cloud Trail log. I don't have any services in my AWS, so if I ran this, it would not return any information. I just have Cloud Trail created for showing how to connect it. And then the news and guides, you can see here, have various news alerts that you can learn more about. It'll take you to the various service sections to read more about these additions. And then the Get Started tab. And as I said, we already did the collect data and connect data sources. Here, though, we could create a security alert. So we see we have some security alerts already in here that were previously set up. These are active rules. You can see, incidents based on advanced threat protection. So these rules came in pretty much when we connected Security Center. It already brought these rules in, or we could create a new rule based on, like I said, a scheduled query, or we can create it on a incident creation rule. So we could give this rule a name, set it to enabled, and then we can look here at what security service we want to look at. Let's just do Security Center. We can filter it by severity or do any. And then you can add specific alerts here based on text. So let's just say virtual machine. We'll add that. And if we wanted to exclude any alerts, we could do that here as well. And here now we've created another rule here, just that simple. So we can create different rules. From there, if we have a rule created and these are enabled, you can see this specific rule. If we select this rule, we can review this rule. We can review the tactics, so you can see the tactics here. There's different tactics here in terms of what those are. We can edit a specific rule in here for what we want that rule to do. We have some other templates here. If we look through these, and we can find ones that we aren't using that might be important to us. Here's one here around Windows Defender, and not having that is not enabled. So we could very easily use this template, enable this template, and create another rule around Windows Defender, Microsoft Defender use. Another piece of this is the automation and orchestration. So let's look at the playbooks here. I have and very similarly, if you've created a workspace workflow automation within Azure Security Center, important thing here around these playbooks is you have to have a logic app, and if you don't have a logic app, you can't create the playbook around it. It works with the logic app on the back end, different from Monitor, where Monitor you can create. You have the triggers, you have the actions, and you have the alerts all within Monitor. Security Center and Sentinel work a little bit differently, where they're using logic apps and they're using those logic app workflows. So it's important that you understand how logic app workflows work before you set these up, and then set those logic apps up before you add the playbook. But we'll go here to add a playbook. It actually, for some reason, it goes to a different window, and it's logging me in again into the logic apps. So here we create our logic app. So assign it to a resource group. Give your logic app a name. validating, and creating. So we're waiting for this to be deployed. Once this is deployed, if you've ever created a logic app before, it's going to take you directly to your logic app designer. We'll come back to that in a minute here. While we're waiting for that, we will go into. Let's go down here and look at the community section. Within the configuration tab, there is a community section here, and if you click on Go to Azure Sentinel Community, it takes you right to the Azure Sentinel section of GitHub. So you can see here lots of great information, as there usually is within GitHub. You can sign up to GitHub. Gives you some getting started information for Azure Sentinel. Lots of helpful links in here for playbooks. You got workbooks in here. You have some notebooks that you can utilize within here as well. So this is GitHub's a great resource for all of your Azure services, especially if you're getting started in Azure and you're trying to figure out how to utilize code within the Azure Sentinel and within the Azure environment. You can find a lot of code that others have written and give you a good starting point where you can then customize it for your needs. So let's see how our log analytics workspace is going here. All right, so we're done deploying that. So if we go to our resource here for our Sentinel logic app, it's going to take me right to my designer. And so you can see there's lots of things you can do here. You can create your own. We can filter in here on categories. If you do security, you can see there's a couple Security Center logic apps here. Let's use this as our notification detection, because we are set up already within Security Center and set up to feed Security Center threat detection. We could generally use this as our logic app within here, and the threat detection then is going to go in there. We already have our 365 account connected, and we also have to then connect to Security Center alerts. And then click continue. And ultimately all that needs to be done here is provide an email address or a group email address here. We can say here we can even edit this if we want. Azure Security Center, and let's say Sentinel has discovered a potential security threat in your environment. And we can add additional parameters if we want for additional attachments or whatnot. Click our next step, and then choose our action at that point. We need to do a time parameter. So remove that one. We should be all right now. Yep, and our logic app's complete. Like I said, you can add additional steps here. I'm not going to play with those right now. I thought I could do one quick, but it did not work. And we can check and see, verify it runs properly right in here by just clicking run. And that would, if I click run, it's going to then immediately send me an email. But we've created a logic app now. So now I can go back into my get started, into my run books, and you can see now my logic app is in place and it's enabled. So we're all good there with a run book. So when a threat is detected, that playbook then is going to execute, and I will get an email saying that a threat's been detected. Then I can immediately go back into my Sentinel dashboard and see where those threats might lie. So let's look a little bit deeper now down the threat management section. And if I had incidents that are being fed from my sources and being seen as threats within my environment, you're going to see those here. And have your open incidents, any new incidents, or those that are being worked on in progress, right within this dashboard. So for a security operations center, as I said, a SOC, they can then go right into this incident section and start doing their work if they haven't been notified of threats or anything like that. But they can, if they come into work in the morning, first thing they should probably do is look at the incidents, see what our incidents are. They may not be getting notified on low severity incidents, but there may be some low severity incidents that we need to take a look at and need to evaluate and remediate within our environment, and that's where those would be found. Have our workbooks here. Again, these workbooks are based on again the data connectors. So we can see AWS network activities. We have a template in here. We can save that template and add it to our workbooks. So that's gonna show up as a workbook. You can see I already saved a workbook for Office 365 in here. And those workbooks, if you click the View Template, it's going to take you to what those network activities look like, what information and what dashboard is going to be created within here. So you can create some specific dashboards in your workbooks and view that information within your environment. So if I go View Saved Workbook for Office 365 for my Sentinel, it'll give me information. And this query, there's some parameters that I'm missing in here, so you can see my information hasn't been fully fed into this. But if you do the View Saved Workbook, it's going to give you your dashboard and provide you with the information around your Office 365 environment. You can see. And as I stated in the slides, the hunting section is really where the analytics and the cognitive services that are built on the back end of Sentinel really take place and really handle your environment and continuously look for threats within the environment based on Microsoft's cybersecurity database. You can see here it's running. You can see 82 different queries are being run within your environment on a regular basis. So these aren't queries that you need to create, you need to set up, or need to do any customization on. They're all in here already. It's recognizing whether there's PowerShell downloads within your environment, login attempts using legacy authentication. It's looking at multiple things within your environment on a constant basis, and allowing you can go in and then view results, or you can just look up here at the dashboard here. You have preview of live stream. So here's actually, this will stream all those playbooks right away, all those queries. We can go in and bookmark specific queries if we wanted to, or we can just look up here and see, you have, look at your specific attacks and see what you have up here that may be a concern to you. We can drill down and look at the specific information in here. And if you want to know more information about the hunting that Sentinel does, here we've got the Microsoft Docs, and it'll take you right to the capabilities around the hunting service within Sentinel. And explains everything that it's doing for you, and how it can be used as your investigator. This is your private investigator within your Sentinel service, within your Azure environment, to help you out. Here we have our notebooks, and as I was saying, you can sign up for specific notebooks. Office 365 and Explorer, you can launch the notebook, and it actually takes you right to Jupyter notebooks from there. Just want me to sign in. It's signing into my account now. You can see it's grabbing information right from a GitHub repository. So Microsoft's done a very good job of tying in a lot of open source services, obviously, around GitHub, which they own, as well as Jupyter notebooks. If you're comfortable with Python code, notebooks are very helpful. I'm going to stop this for now. And you can see I have this in my projects. This notebook is running. This is the notebook that I just initiated, so it starts running. I ran the same notebook yesterday. I ran a notebook yesterday, and you can see, nothing really came out of it. I can run it again here if I wanted to, and you can see, it takes you to what is taking place within that notebook. So again, another very helpful source of gathering information and feeding information into Azure Sentinel. So we go down in the configuration, hit the analytics. Again, this is just, we talked about this before. This is, again, where you would create your rules. So, you had in the get started, you had the create a rule. Again, you can go down into analytics and do the same thing. You don't have to always go into the get started section. You have the same three, essentially the first three menu items here within configuration are those get started items. And then lastly is the settings section. The settings section is very helpful, as I said, in reviewing your account and reviewing what data you're ingesting. And you can see here, it is important. It's tiered those tiered services to scale up and scale down your subscription don't take place automatically. You need to initiate the upgrade to those tiers, and you can look here and review your data ingestion and determine, okay, I'm doing over 100 between 100 and 200 gigabits a day. I need to make sure that I'm applying this subscription to my environment, that this is what I'm paying for the service, and I'm getting that, and I'm taking advantage of that 50% discount. Otherwise, if you stay in this pay as you go and you're ingesting that 100 to 200 gigabits a day, you're still going to be at $2.50 approximately per gigabyte per day. Where you get, if you tier up to this capacity reservation, you are going to save 50%. And you can see I'm ingesting a walloping 120 kilobits, so I can stay at the tier that I'm at for right now. I do not need to tier up. I'm not even hitting a gigabit, so I'm paying fractions of a penny per day right now for my Azure Sentinel services. The other pieces here, you have your workspace settings, takes you again another access right into your log analytics workspace. And then the last piece here to talk about is removing Azure Sentinel. If you no longer need Azure Sentinel in your subscription, you need to take the information. Maybe you're changing subscriptions, or you're doing something, or you need to make adjustments to the Azure Sentinel. You don't need it anymore. You can then remove it right from here. Microsoft wants some information as to why you're doing that, and then you click remove, and then it'll take all the data and analytics rules and remove those from your services. So if you need to, unlike I said, deleting services from Azure, generally going into your service and then hitting delete and then verifying yes, or typing the service name if it's a resource group. With Sentinel's a little bit different, where you've got to go into the settings, remove Azure Sentinel, and remove the service from that from your environment that way. And that ends our walkthrough and introduction to the SIEM service and Azure Sentinel. We talked about what is a SIEM, what is Azure Sentinel. We discussed how to enable Azure Sentinel, connect data sources using Azure Sentinel then for your security incident detection and response. So this ends my presentation. Feel free now to, if you're on mute and you have a question, so you're free to ask a question verbally, or if you're more comfortable typing something into the chat screen, I'm monitoring that as well. So I'll let everybody ask any questions if you have them. And if I go back, I'm going to go back for a second, and I'm going to go back to my first slide, or my author slide for you. I'll go back to my author slide so everybody can get my my instructor information. It's also available if you go to the Skill Me Up page, and there's a link to the authors for my site, and it has direct access to my LinkedIn and Twitter in there, as well as the URL for my website. I welcome you to reach out. If you want me to send you a copy of this presentation so you have some of the links that are in there, I'll be happy to do that as well. But if I want to thank everybody for their time today. Appreciate I know globally, I don't know who I have here from a geographic standpoint, but I know there's a lot of concerns outside of our little office bubbles about everybody around the globe with the pandemic. So I hope everybody has been healthy and safe and continues to do so. And I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to spend an hour with me learning about Azure Sentinel. And for those of you who reached out with your thank you, I want to tell you you're welcome. And again, thank you very much. I'll leave things open here for another minute or so. If anybody thinks of any questions they might have, I'll just stay around. And if not, enjoy the rest of your day.